The alarm clock screamed at 4:30 in the morning just like it did every single day. Maria's eyes opened slowly, her body still aching from yesterday's work. She had only gotten 3 hours of sleep, but that was normal now. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. She quietly slipped out of bed, trying not to wake her 3 kids who were all sleeping in the other bedroom. 15-year-old Carmen was curled up on the small couch they had squeezed into the room. 12-year-old Diego shared the bed with 8-year-old Sofia, who was hugging her worn teddy bear tight. Maria tiptoed to the tiny kitchen and made herself a cup of instant coffee with water that took forever to heat up because their old stove barely worked. She had exactly 20 minutes before she needed to leave for her first job at the downtown hotel. Looking around their small apartment, Maria felt that familiar weight in her chest. The paint was peeling off the walls and there was a water stain on the ceiling that kept getting bigger every time it rained. The furniture was all secondhand, picked up from garage sales or given to them by kind neighbors. But it was home, and she was grateful they had a roof over their heads. She grabbed her hotel uniform from the closet, the same 2 sets she rotated every day. The fabric was getting thin and one of the shirts had a small tear near the pocket, but they were clean. Maria always made sure they were clean. No matter how tired she was, she never went to work looking messy. She had her pride. At 5 a.m. sharp, she was out the door walking 12 blocks to the hotel because bus fare was money they needed for food. The morning air was cold, and her thin jacket didn't do much to keep her warm, but she walked fast to stay warm and to make sure she wasn't late. The Hotel Grand wasn't really grand at all, but it was steady work. Maria cleaned 15 rooms every day, changing sheets, scrubbing bathrooms, and vacuuming carpets. Her back ached constantly from bending over beds and lifting heavy mattresses. Her hands were rough and dry from all the cleaning chemicals. But she never complained. She couldn't afford to lose this job. During her lunch break, she usually just ate a peanut butter sandwich she had packed from home. Sometimes she skipped lunch altogether to save money. The hotel manager, Mrs. Peterson, was decent enough, and sometimes brought leftover pastries from the hotel breakfast for the cleaning staff. Those were good days. At 2 p.m., Maria's shift at the hotel ended, and she had exactly 30 minutes to get home, check on the kids, and change for her second job. She practically ran those 12 blocks, her tired legs pushing her forward. Carmen was always there when she got home, watching Diego and Sofia. Maria's heart broke a little every time. She saw her oldest daughter acting like a mother instead of a teenager. Carmen should have been hanging out with friends or worrying about homework, not making sure her little sister did her reading practice. "How was school today?" Maria would ask, even though she only had a few minutes. "Good, Mom," Carmen always said, though Maria could see the tiredness in her daughter's eyes too. Diego was usually at the kitchen table, working on homework with papers spread everywhere. He was a smart boy, always getting good grades, but Maria worried about him. He had started collecting aluminum cans after school, riding his old bike around the neighborhood to find them. He told her it was fun, but she knew he was trying to help with money. Little Sofia was the sunshine of the family. She would run to hug Maria's legs as soon as she walked in, chattering about her day at school, about her friends, about the story her teacher read. Sofia still believed in magic and happy endings. Maria hoped she could keep believing for as long as possible. "I have to go to work now, babies," Maria would say, changing into her diner uniform. "Carmen, you're in charge. Diego, help your sister with homework. Sofia, be good for your big sister." The walk to Danny's diner was only 6 blocks, but by the time Maria got there at 3:30, her feet were already sore from the morning of cleaning hotel rooms. The diner was always busy, filled with construction workers, office people, and families getting an early dinner. Maria worked as a waitress until 11 p.m., carrying heavy trays, taking orders, and always smiling even when customers were rude. Her tips were small, usually just a few dollars here and there, but every dollar mattered. Some nights, when business was slow, she made barely enough to cover the bus ride home because she was too tired to walk. The hardest part was when families came in with their kids. She would watch parents buying their children hamburgers and milkshakes, and she would think about her own kids at home, probably eating cereal for dinner because that's all they had left. There were nights when Maria stood in the diner bathroom, looking at herself in the mirror, wondering how much longer she could keep going. Her reflection showed a woman who looked older than her 32 years. Her black hair was always pulled back in a ponytail, and there were dark circles under her brown eyes that makeup couldn't hide. When her shift finally ended, Maria would count her tips in the back room. On good nights, she made $40. On bad nights, it was barely 20. She kept all the money in an old envelope, carefully dividing it in her head. Rent, electricity, groceries, bus fare for the kids, school supplies. There was never enough. The bus ride home was the only quiet time Maria had all day. She would sit in the back, watching the city lights pass by, and sometimes she would let herself cry. Just for a few minutes. She always stopped before her stop, because she couldn't let the kids see her upset. Getting home at midnight, Maria would find the apartment quiet. Carmen had gotten Diego and Sofia ready for bed, helped them with homework, and usually left a note about their day. Sofia ate all her vegetables. Diego got an A on his math test. We saved you some dinner. The saved dinner was usually just a bowl of rice or pasta, but Maria's heart would fill up with love for her children. They were good kids trying so hard to help, trying so hard not to be a burden. Before going to bed, Maria would check on each of them. She would pull blankets up to their chins, kiss their foreheads, and whisper, "I love you." These were the best moments of her day. But then she would sit at the kitchen table with all the bills spread out, trying to figure out how to make the numbers work. The rent was due in 3 days, and they were short $50. The electricity bill was overdue, and they had already gotten a warning notice. Diego needed new shoes because his were falling apart, but shoes cost money they didn't have. Some nights Maria would put her head down on the table and just sit there, trying to find the strength for another day. She never gave up, though. She couldn't. Her children needed her. At 1 a.m., she would finally crawl into bed knowing that in 3.5 hours that alarm would scream again, and she would start the whole day over. But every morning, she got up. Every morning she put on that smile. For her kids. Every morning she kept fighting, because that's what mothers do. They keep going, even when they don't know how. It was a Friday night in February, and the cold was the kind that cuts right through your bones. Maria had just finished her shift at the diner, and her whole body ached more than usual. The tips had been terrible that night, only $18 for 8 hours of work. She counted the crumpled bills 3 times, hoping somehow the numbers would change, but they didn't. The grocery store was about to close, and Maria knew she had to get there before they locked the doors. With $18 in tips plus the 20 she had saved from earlier in the week, she had exactly $38 to feed her family for the next 7 days. She did the math in her head as she walked, trying to figure out how to make it stretch. Rice, beans, milk for Sofia, bread, peanut butter, and maybe some eggs if they were on sale. That was about all she could afford. No meat this week. No fresh fruit. Definitely no treats for the kids. The grocery store was nearly empty when Maria walked in. The bright lights hurt her tired eyes, and the warmth felt good after the cold walk. She grabbed a small cart and started walking slowly through the aisles, checking prices on everything, putting things back when they cost too much. She found the kids waiting for her outside the store, just like they always did on Friday nights. Carmen, Diego, and Sofia were huddled together on the bench by the entrance, sharing Diego's jacket because they only had 2 warm coats between the 3 of them. "Mom!" Sofia ran to her, wrapping her small arms around Maria's waist. "We waited and waited for you." "I know, baby. I'm sorry I'm late." Maria kissed the top of Sofia's head and looked at Carmen and Diego. "You 2 didn't have to wait in this cold. You could have gone home." "We wanted to help carry the bags," Diego said, though Maria could see he was shivering. Carmen took some of the grocery bags without being asked. She was always doing that, helping before Maria even had to ask. It made Maria proud and sad at the same time. Carmen should be worrying about teenage things, not grocery bags and taking care of her family. They started walking home together, Maria in the middle with Sofia holding her hand, Carmen and Diego on either side carrying the light bags of groceries, The cold wind was getting stronger, and Maria pulled her thin jacket tighter around herself. "Mom, look at all those stars," Sophia said, pointing up at the clear night sky. "Do you think Grandma can see them too, up in heaven?" "I think she can, sweetheart. I think she watches over us every night." They were only 2 blocks from home when they saw him. At first, Maria thought it was just a pile of old clothes someone had thrown away, but as they got closer, she realized it was a person lying on the sidewalk, not moving. Carmen saw him too and grabbed Sophia's other hand, pulling her a little closer. "Mom," Carmen whispered, "is that man okay?" Maria's heart started beating faster. Other people were walking by, but they were all crossing to the other side of the street or looking away. Nobody was stopping to help. She handed her grocery bag to Diego and walked closer. The man was lying on his side, and she could see he was older, probably in his 60s. His skin looked gray, and his lips were turning blue. His clothes were nice, not like a homeless person, but he wasn't moving at all. "Sir?" Maria called out, kneeling down beside him. "Sir, can you hear me?" No response. She put her hand near his mouth and felt just the tiniest bit of breathing, so weak she almost missed it. "Oh, God," she whispered. "Kids, come here quickly." Carmen, Diego and Sophia hurried over, their eyes wide with worry. "Diego, I need you to run to that store we just came from and ask them to call 911. Tell them there's a man here who needs an ambulance right now." "Can you do that?" Diego nodded and took off running, his footsteps echoing in the quiet street. "Carmen, give me your jacket. Sophia, give me yours too." "But Mom, we'll be cold," Sophia said, already starting to take off her little pink coat. "Don't worry about being cold, baby. This man might die if we don't keep him warm." Maria took both jackets and covered the man as best she could. His breathing was so shallow she had to keep checking to make sure he was still alive. She had never seen anyone look so close to death before, and it scared her. "What's wrong with him, Mom?" Carmen asked, crouching down beside Maria. "I think his heart is sick, sweetheart. Sometimes that happens to people, especially when they get older." Sophia knelt down on the other side of the man and very gently took his cold hand in her small warm ones. "Don't worry, mister," she whispered. "My mom is going to take care of you. She takes care of everybody." Maria felt tears in her eyes. Here was her 8-year-old daughter, shivering in the cold, comforting a stranger. Where did children learn to be so kind? A few minutes later, Diego came running back with one of the store workers, a young guy named Tommy who Maria recognized from the checkout counter. "I called 911, Tommy said, breathing hard from running. "They said the ambulance is coming. Maybe 5 minutes." "Thank you," Maria said. "Thank you so much." Tommy looked down at the man and then at Maria and her kids, all of them shivering in the cold, using their own coats to keep a stranger warm. "You guys are good people," he said quietly. More people had started to gather around, but they just stood there watching. Nobody else offered to help or give up their coat. A few people took out their phones, but Maria couldn't tell if they were calling for more help or just taking pictures. The ambulance seemed to take forever. But finally, they heard the sirens getting louder. Red and blue lights flashed down the street and the ambulance pulled up next to them. 2 paramedics jumped out, a woman and a man, both moving fast with their equipment. "What happened here?" the woman asked as she knelt down beside the man. "We found him like this," Maria explained. "He was barely breathing. I think maybe his heart?" The paramedics worked quickly, checking his pulse, listening to his chest, putting an oxygen mask over his face. The man paramedic looked up at Maria. "You probably saved his life by keeping him warm. He's had a heart attack, and lying in this cold could have killed him." They lifted the unconscious man onto a stretcher and started loading him into the ambulance. The woman paramedic turned to Maria. "Are you family?" "No, we just found him. We don't know who he is." "Well, he's lucky you cared enough to stop. A lot of people wouldn't have." As they were about to drive away, Maria did something that surprised even herself. "Wait," she called out. Can I come with him? He doesn't have anybody and nobody should be alone in the hospital." The paramedic looked at Maria's 3 kids, then back at Maria. "Are you sure? It could be a long night." Maria looked at Carmen, who nodded immediately. We'll be okay, Mom. Take care of him. I'll walk them home, Tommy offered. I was getting off work anyway. Maria hugged each of her children quickly. Go straight home and lock the door. Carmen, you're in charge. I'll call you from the hospital as soon as I know something. She climbed into the back of the ambulance, leaving her groceries with Tommy to take to her kids. As the ambulance drove away, she could see Carmen, Diego, and Sofia standing on the sidewalk, waving goodbye. Inside the ambulance, the man was still unconscious, but his breathing seemed a little better with the oxygen mask. Maria held his hand and talked to him quietly, the way she talked to her own children when they were scared. You're going to be okay, she whispered. The doctors are going to take good care of you. You just hold on. She didn't know his name. She didn't know if he had family. She didn't know anything about him except that he was a human being who needed help, and she couldn't just walk away from that, even though she couldn't afford to miss work tomorrow, even though she had her own problems, even though she barely had enough money for her own family. Maria knew she had done the right thing. Sometimes being human means helping, even when you can barely help yourself. The hospital was bright and cold, with that sharp smell of cleaning supplies that made Maria's nose itch. She had never spent much time in hospitals before, and everything felt strange and scary. The nurses at the front desk looked busy and tired, just like she felt most days. Excuse me, Maria said quietly to one of the nurses. I came in with the man who had the heart attack, the one the ambulance brought in about an hour ago. The nurse, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, looked up from her computer. Are you family? No, ma'am. We found him on the street, my kids and I. He didn't have anyone with him, and I just wanted to make sure he was okay. The nurse studied Maria's face for a moment, probably wondering why a stranger would care so much. Let me check on him for you. Have a seat over there. Maria sat in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs in the waiting room. There were other people there too, some sleeping, some crying, some just staring at the walls. She felt out of place in her diner uniform, smelling like French fries and coffee. She looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost 2 a.m. She should be home, sleeping, getting ready for another long day of work. But she couldn't leave. Something inside her wouldn't let her walk away from that old man. The nurse came back a few minutes later. He's stable now, but it was a close call. The doctor says if you hadn't found him when you did, he probably wouldn't have made it. You saved his life. Maria felt her eyes fill with tears. Can I see him? Just for a minute? Well, he's not conscious yet, and visiting hours are over, but... The nurse looked around and then leaned closer. I'm not supposed to do this, but you can sit with him for a little while. Room 237, down that hallway. Maria found the room and quietly pushed open the door. The man was lying in the hospital bed, looking so small and fragile under all the white sheets. There were machines beeping around him and tubes going into his arms. His face had more color now, not that scary gray it had been on the street. She pulled a chair close to his bed and sat down. Hi, she whispered, feeling a little silly talking to someone who couldn't hear her. I don't know your name, but I wanted you to know that you're not alone. My name is Maria, and my kids and I found you tonight. Sofia, she's my youngest. She held your hand while we waited for the ambulance. She told you not to worry. Maria stayed, there for 2 hours, sometimes talking quietly, sometimes just sitting in silence. She told him about her children, about her jobs, about how scared she had been when she found him. She talked about her mother, who had died 3 years ago, and how much she missed having someone to talk to about grown-up problems. When the sun started coming up outside the hospital window, Maria knew she had to go home. Her kids would be worried, and she had to get ready for work. I have to go now, she whispered to the sleeping man. But I'll come back later, okay? After work. She stopped at the nurse's station on her way out. If he wakes up, will you tell him that Maria and her kids are thinking about him? And if you find out his name, could you let me know? The nurse smiled. I will. And ma'am? What you're doing is really special. Not many people would care this much about a stranger. Maria walked home as the city was waking up, her mind full of thoughts about the old man. She wondered who he was, if he had children, somewhere who were worried about him, if anyone even knew he was missing. When she got home, all 3 kids were still awake waiting for her on the couch. Mom, Sophia ran to her. Is the man okay? Did the doctors fix his heart? He's going to be okay, baby. The doctors are taking very good care of him. What's his name? Diego asked. I don't know yet. He was still sleeping when I left. Carmen looked at her mother's tired face. Mom, you need to get some sleep before work. I know, sweetheart. I just need a shower first. But Maria didn't sleep much. She kept thinking about the man in room 237, wondering if he was awake yet, wondering if he was scared waking up alone in a strange place. At the hotel that day, Maria was more tired than usual. Mrs. Peterson noticed her moving slower and asked if she was feeling okay. I'm fine, Maria said, not wanting to explain about missing sleep to sit with a stranger in the hospital. Just a long night. During her lunch break, instead of eating her usual peanut butter sandwich, Maria called the hospital. Can you tell me how the man in room 237 is doing? The one who came in last night with a heart attack? Are you family? The voice on the phone asked. No, but I'm the one who found him. I just want to know if he's okay. He woke up this morning and he's doing much better. The doctor says he should make a full recovery. Maria felt relief wash over her. That's wonderful. Thank you. After work, at the hotel, Maria stopped at home to change clothes and check on the kids before heading to her shift at the diner. Carmen was helping Diego with his homework while Sophia colored at the kitchen table. How's the man today, Mom? Sophia asked, looking up from her coloring book. He's awake now, and he's feeling better. Can we go see him? Sophia asked excitedly. I want to give him my picture. She held up her coloring book page, which showed a stick figure family holding hands under a rainbow. Maria looked at the picture and smiled. That's beautiful, baby. I think he would love to see it. That evening, after the dinner rush at the diner, Maria asked her boss if she could leave a few minutes early. I know it's not like me to ask, she said, but there's someone in the hospital I need to check on. Her boss, Danny, was a good man who had watched Maria work harder than anyone for 2 years. Go ahead. Take care of whatever you need to take care of. Maria hurried to the hospital, stopping at home to pick up the kids first. They walked through the hospital doors together, Sophia clutching her colored picture, Diego carrying a comic book he wanted to share, and Carmen holding a small bunch of flowers they had picked from the garden behind their apartment building. The same nurse from the night before was working again. She smiled when she saw them. He's been asking about you all day, she said. He kept talking about the angel and her children who saved his life. I told him I'd let him know when you came back. They walked down the hallway together, the kids walking quietly because hospitals made them feel nervous. Maria knocked softly on the door of room 237. Come in. A voice called from inside. The man was sitting up in bed looking so much better than he had the night before. His eyes were bright and alert, and he had some color in his cheeks. When he saw Maria and the kids, his face lit up with the biggest smile. You came back, he said, his voice soft with emotion. I wasn't sure if I had dreamed you. This is Sophia, Diego and Carmen, Maria said, gently pushing her children forward. And I'm Maria. Sophia stepped up to the bed first, holding out her picture. I made this for you, mister. It's my family, and there's a rainbow because rainbows mean everything is going to be okay. The man took the picture with shaking hands, and Maria could see tears in his eyes. This is the most beautiful picture anyone has ever given me. What's your name, sweetheart? Sophia. What's your name? My name is Walter, he said. And I am so happy to meet you, Sophia. Diego stepped forward next and handed Walter the comic book. I thought you might be bored in here. This one's really good. Thank you, Diego. I haven't read a comic book in many, many years. Carmen gave him the small bunch of flowers. These are from our garden. Mom says flowers make people feel better when they're sick. Walter looked at each gift, then at each child, then at Maria. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to thank you for what you did. The doctors told me I would have died if you hadn't found me. We couldn't just leave you there, Maria said simply. Anyone would have done the same thing. Walter shook his head. No, Maria. Not everyone would have done what you did. A lot of people walked by me that night. But you stopped. You cared about a complete stranger. They visited for an hour and Walter told them stories about his life, about places he had traveled, about books he had read. The kids listened with wide eyes, asking questions and laughing at his jokes. When it was time to go, Walter took Maria's hand. Will you come back tomorrow? If you want us to. I would like that very much. As they walked home that night, Sophia skipped along the sidewalk. I like Walter, Mom. He's nice. He is nice, baby. Are we going to be his family now? Sophia asked innocently. Maria smiled. Sometimes children understood things better than adults did. I think maybe we are, Sophia. I think maybe we are. Over the next few days, visiting Walter became part of their daily routine. Maria would stop by the hospital after her morning shift at the hotel, sometimes bringing him a cup of coffee from the machine in the hallway, because he said the hospital coffee tasted terrible. The kids would come with her after school, turning room 237 into a place filled with laughter and stories. Walter was getting stronger every day. The doctors were amazed at how fast he was recovering, and they kept saying it was because he had something to live for now. Maria didn't understand what they meant, but she was just happy to see him sitting up, smiling and looking forward to their visits. On Wednesday afternoon, Maria arrived at the hospital to find Walter sitting in the chair by his window, fully dressed in regular clothes instead of the hospital gown. You look so much better, Maria said, settling into the chair beside him. Are you going home soon? Walter's smile faded a little. That's what I wanted to talk to you about, Maria. I need to tell you some things about myself, things I should have told you sooner. Something in his voice made Maria sit up straighter. What is it? Are you in some kind of trouble? No, nothing like that. Walter looked out the window for a moment as if he was trying to figure out how to start. The night you found me, I wasn't just out for a walk. I was ready to give up on everything. Maria felt her heart sink. What do you mean? 3 years ago, I lost my wife. Her name was Rose, and we were married for 42 years. She died of cancer, and it was long and painful, and I watched her suffer for months. Walter's voice got quiet. After she died, I just couldn't see the point in anything anymore. Oh, Walter. Maria reached over and took his hand. I'm so sorry. I had been walking around the city that night, thinking about Rose, thinking about how empty everything felt without her. I had actually decided. He paused and looked at Maria. I had decided that I didn't want to keep going. And then my heart attack happened right there on that sidewalk. Maria felt tears in her eyes. She couldn't imagine losing someone you loved that much. Couldn't imagine feeling so alone that you wanted to give up on life. But when I woke up here, and the nurses told me about you and your children, about how you stayed with me all night, about how Sophia held my hand. Walter smiled through his own tears. It was like Rose was sending me a message, like she was telling me there were still good people in the world, still reasons to keep living. We were just doing what anyone would do, Maria said softly. No, Maria. That's what I thought too at first. But then I started paying attention. I started watching. Watching what? Walter looked uncomfortable. I hope you won't be angry with me, but I asked the nurses some questions. About you. About your family. Maria felt confused. What kind of questions? I noticed things, like how tired you always look, how you're always in work uniforms when you visit, how thin your children are, how Carmen's shoes have holes in them, and Diego's backpack is held together with tape. Maria felt her cheeks get hot with embarrassment. She had tried so hard to make sure her struggles didn't show, but apparently they were more obvious than she thought. I started asking around. Walter continued gently. I found out you work 2 jobs, that you walk to work to save bus fare, that you've been missing shifts to come see me. Maria, you've been sacrificing your own family's needs to take care of a stranger. It wasn't a sacrifice, Maria said quickly. You needed someone. And that's exactly what I mean. Walter leaned forward. Do you know what the nurses told me? They said in all their years working here, they've never seen anything like what you did. Most people, when they visit someone in the hospital, it's family or close friends. But you missed work to sit with a man you'd never met before. Maria didn't know what to say. She had just done what felt right. There's something else I need to tell you, Walter said. Something about who I am. What do you mean? Walter was quiet for a long moment. Before Rose got sick, before I lost interest in everything, I was a businessman. I owned restaurants, Maria. A whole chain of them. Maria blinked. Restaurants? 15 of them, across 3 states. I built the business from nothing, starting with just one small place when Rose and I were young. We worked together for years, building it up, making it successful. But you said you were alone. You said you didn't have anyone. I am alone now. After Rose died, I couldn't bring myself to care about the business anymore. I have managers running everything, and I just disappeared. I stopped answering calls, stopped going to meetings. I just wanted to be left alone with my grief. Maria tried to process what Walter was telling her. This man she had been visiting, this man who seemed so lonely and lost, was actually successful and wealthy? I know this is a lot to take in, Walter said, but I needed you to know the truth about who I am. And I need you to know why meeting you and your family has changed everything for me. I don't understand. Maria, watching you these past few days, seeing how you love your children, seeing how you work so hard and still find time to care about others, it reminded me of Rose. It reminded me of the person I used to be before grief made me forget how to live. Walter stood up and walked to the window. Rose and I never had children. We tried for years, but it just wasn't meant to be. We always said that someday we'd find other ways to help families, other ways to make a difference, but after she died, I forgot about all of that. Walter, he turned back to her. You have 3 beautiful, kind, smart children who are growing up watching their mother work herself to death, trying to provide for them. And instead of becoming bitter or selfish, they're learning to be generous and caring, just like you. Maria felt overwhelmed. I don't know what you're trying to say. I'm saying that Rose would have loved your family. I'm saying that taking care of you and your children would make her happy. And I'm saying that you've given me a reason to start living again. But we barely know each other. Sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes people come into your life exactly when you need them, and it doesn't matter if you've known them for 5 days or 5 years. Walter sat back down and looked directly at Maria. I want to help your family. I want to do something meaningful with my life again. And I think Rose would approve. Walter, we can't accept charity. I work hard. I take care of my children. This isn't charity, Maria. This is family taking care of family. Because that's what we are now, whether we planned it or not. You saved my life, not just by calling that ambulance, but by showing me that there's still love and kindness in the world. Maria felt tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now. Just think about it. Think about what Rose would want. Think about what's best for Carmen and Diego and Sofia. At that moment, the kids arrived for their daily visit, bursting through the door with their usual energy and excitement to see Walter. Walter! Sofia ran to him. Guess what happened at school today? As Maria watched Walter's face light up at seeing the children, as she watched him listen to their stories and laugh at their jokes, she realized that maybe this wasn't about charity at all. Maybe this was about something much more important. Maybe this was about people who needed each other finding each other exactly when they were supposed to. Maybe this was about family being more than just blood. Maybe it was about love, being bigger than anything else. 3 months had passed since that cold February night when Maria and her children found Walter on the sidewalk. Spring was starting to show itself around the city, with small green buds appearing on the trees and warmer days that didn't cut through your jacket like a knife. Walter had been out of the hospital for weeks now, but he still came by to visit Maria's family almost every day. Sometimes he would show up after Maria's morning shift with groceries, claiming he had bought too much for just one person. Other times he would arrive when the kids got home from school, helping Diego with his math homework or listening to Sofia read from her favorite books. Maria had tried to refuse his help at first. Her pride made it hard to accept anything that felt like charity. But Walter had a way of making everything seem natural, like friends helping friends, like family taking care of each other. One sunny Saturday morning, Walter knocked on their apartment door earlier than usual. Maria answered it in her pajamas, still tired from working late at the diner the night before. "Walter? What are you doing here so early? Is everything okay?" He was dressed nicer than usual, wearing a suit and tie, and he had a big smile on his face that made him look like he was holding the best secret in the world. "Get the kids dressed up," he said, practically bouncing with excitement. "We're going on a little adventure today." "Walter, I have to work this afternoon." "No, you don't. I already talked to Danny. He's giving you the day off." Maria stared at him. "You talked to my boss?" "Walter, what are you up to?" "Just trust me, okay? Get everyone ready, wear something nice." An hour later, they were all piled into Walter's car, which Maria had never seen before. It was big and comfortable, nothing like the old buses she was used to riding. The kids were excited, asking a million questions about where they were going, but Walter just kept smiling and telling them it was a surprise. He drove them across town to a part of the city Maria rarely visited, where the buildings were newer and the streets were cleaner. Finally, he pulled up in front of a restaurant with big windows and a sign that read Rose's Kitchen. "This is one of my restaurants," Walter said as they got out of the car. "The first one Rose and I opened together 43 years ago." The kids pressed their faces to the windows, looking at the busy dining room inside where people were eating and laughing and enjoying their Saturday morning. "It's beautiful," Carmen said. "Can we eat here?" Sophia asked, her eyes wide. "Maybe," Walter said with that mysterious smile. "Let's go inside first." Walter led them through the front door, and immediately a woman came rushing over. She was about Walter's age, with gray hair and a warm smile, wearing an apron that said manager on it. "Walter," she exclaimed, giving him a big hug. "It's so good to see you. And this must be the famous family I've been hearing so much about." "Maria, kids, this is Linda. She's been managing this place for me for 20 years. Linda, this is Maria, Carmen, Diego, and Sophia." Linda shook hands with each of them, but Maria noticed she paid special attention to the children, asking them about school and complimenting Sophia on her dress. "Come on," Walter said. "Let me show you around." He took them on a tour of the restaurant, showing them the kitchen where chefs were cooking breakfast, the dining room with its cheerful yellow walls and pictures of sunflowers, and finally to a quiet corner booth where he asked them all to sit down. "Walter," Maria said, feeling nervous. "What's going on? Why are you showing us all this?" Walter looked at each of them, his eyes settling on Maria last. "Because I have something important to ask you, and I wanted you to see this place first." A waitress brought them all orange juice and coffee, and Walter waited until she left before he continued talking. "Maria, for the past 3 months I've watched you work yourself to exhaustion trying to take care of your family. I've watched Carmen act like a grown-up when she should be enjoying being a teenager. I've watched Diego collect cans to try to help with money, and I've watched Sophia go to bed hungry more nights than any child should." Maria felt her cheeks get hot. "Walter, we're doing fine. You're surviving," Walter said gently. "But surviving isn't the same as living, and your children deserve to live, not just survive." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out some papers. "I've been thinking about this for weeks, and I know what Rose would want me to do." "What are you talking about?" "I want you to come work for me, Maria, as the manager of my newest restaurant location. We're opening it next month, just 15 minutes from your apartment." Maria's mouth fell open. "Walter, I don't know anything about managing a restaurant." "You know about working hard. You know about taking care of people. You know about making customers feel welcome. Linda here started as a waitress, just like you, and look at her now." Linda nodded. "It's true. Walter taught me everything I know, and from what he's told me about you, you'd be perfect for this job. The salary would be 3 times what you're making now at both your jobs combined," Walter continued, "plus health insurance for all of you and a college fund that I'll set up for each of the kids." Maria felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. "There's more," Walter said softly. "I bought the building where you live." "You what?" I bought it last month. Your rent is now $1 per month. And if anything breaks, it gets fixed immediately. Carmen, Diego, and Sofia had been listening with wide eyes, not fully understanding what was happening but knowing it was something big. Why? Maria whispered, tears starting to fall down her cheeks. Why would you do all this for us? Walter's own eyes were wet with tears. Because you gave me my life back. Because Rose would have loved you and your children. Because sometimes the universe puts people in your path exactly when you need them most. But this is too much. We can't accept all this. Maria, Walter said, reaching across the table to take her hands. For 3 years after Rose died, I had no purpose, I had no joy, I was just waiting to die. And then you and your beautiful children showed me that there's still good in the world, still love, still reasons to keep going. He looked at each of the kids. Carmen, you remind me of Rose when she was young. You're strong and smart and you take care of everyone around you. Diego, you have the biggest heart of any boy I've ever met. And Sofia, he smiled at the little girl. Sofia, you have magic in you. You see the good in everyone. Sofia giggled. I like magic. I know you do, sweetheart. Walter turned back to Maria. This isn't charity. This is family. You've become the family I never had, and I want to take care of you the way you took care of me. Maria looked around. The restaurant. At all the happy families eating together. At Linda, who was watching with tears in her eyes. At her own children who were looking at her with hope and excitement. What do you say, Mom? Carmen asked quietly. Can we be Walter's family? Maria looked at Walter, this man who had come into their lives in the most unexpected way, who had changed everything just by needing help on a cold sidewalk. Okay, she whispered. Yes, we'll be your family. The whole restaurant seemed to explode with happiness. Linda started crying and hugging everyone. Sofia jumped up and down, clapping her hands. Diego grinned the biggest smile Maria had seen from him in years. And Carmen, her serious grown-up Carmen, finally looked like a teenager again. Walter stood up and hugged Maria tight. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for saving my life in every way a person can be saved. 6 months later, Maria's new restaurant was the most popular place in the neighborhood. She had discovered she was a natural leader, and her employees loved working for someone who understood what it meant to struggle and to work hard. Carmen was taking advanced classes at school and talking about college. Diego had joined the school chess club and was making friends. Sofia was still the sunshine of the family, but now she had new dresses and toys and all the books she wanted to read. And Walter had become the grandfather the children had never had, showing up for school plays and soccer games, teaching Diego how to drive, and spoiling Sofia just enough to make her feel special without making her spoiled. On quiet evenings, when the family was all together in their newly renovated apartment, Maria would sometimes think about that cold February night when they found a dying stranger on the sidewalk. She had thought she was saving Walter's life. But really, he had saved all of theirs. Sometimes the best things in life come from the simplest acts of kindness. Sometimes helping a stranger changes your whole world. And sometimes family isn't about blood at all, but about people who choose to love each other no matter what.